Fans getting ready for the Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. I'm Michael Young in the public address booth alongside Dave Bradley. Exciting race yesterday. A lot of insanity on the opening lap. Quickly before we fire engines, tell us a little bit about what happened yesterday.
Well, we had to go. Unfortunately, we didn't have the TV screens yesterday when we were calling the race, so got a lot of the stories after the fact, and I actually got a chance to see onboard footage from the 77 of Patrick Dussault. Unfortunately, can't make the start here today. Car was too badly damaged. But it was in the first turn on the first lap. It looked like the 16 of Jeff Kingsley came flying down the inside, made contact with the 96 of Remo Ricchetti, who almost went all the way around one way, came back the other way across the track, and that's where more contact was made. So Patrick Dussault caught the wall, and that ended his race. Michael DeMaio had front-end damage. That ended his race as well. And the 14 of Michael Fanton ended up getting caught in the fluid and pancaked the wall. So damage that he couldn't continue with in that race yesterday. So most of those cars are repaired and ready to go back to action here today. Kingsley has a new front bumper. The 35, they thrashed all night on that one. But again, the 77, Patrick Dussault, unable to make the start here today. Damage just too bad to that one.
Less than 30 seconds from the command to fire these Porsche engines. Race number 2 of the weekend. And this, looking forward to another fantastic event. And yesterday it was certainly the Zachary Robichon show. His teammate Roman DeAngelis doing a fine job trying to keep pace with him. Moments away as we get set to fire engines. Race number 2 of the weekend, the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. Race number 2. Engines are fired. We will let the field roll down the front straightaway. We will go green first time by. So a little bit about that run yesterday, and it's really been, Dave, the Zachary Robichon show. He has been non-stop consistent, winning 6 of the 7 events. His teammate able to steal round 1 in Montreal, but this young man is putting on quite a show for the race fans this year.
He's putting on a clinic. By the end of the race yesterday, he had opened up in over 4 seconds, almost 4.5 seconds over Roman DeAngelis to take the race win yesterday, essentially uncontested the entire way. Through the middle portion of the race, DeAngelis did start to string together some pretty fast laps and start to close the gap a little bit, but Robichon got wind of that, and he just laid on the gas pedal a little bit harder and strung together very, very clean, solid laps, and again, open up that gap to about a 4.5 second margin by the time the checkered flag flew. So we set today's starting grid based on laps set during race number 1 yesterday. So that'll put the number 98 of Zachary Robichon on pole in the Mark Motors Racing entry. Outside front row will be the 78, his teammate, Roman DeAngelis, also another Mark Motors entry. Then it's Remo Ricchetti, who, despite being well back in the field, managed to click off a good lap. So that means he will start third here today in the open road racing, number 96. Michael DeMaio will roll off in 4th spot. Patrick Dussault slated to start 5th. He will not do so. Stefan Rudzinski managed to finish 3rd in yesterday's race number 1. Will roll off in 5th instead. Michael Fanton in 7th. Perry Bortolani, one of the Masters class entrants here today, will roll off in the 7th spot. Marco Cerrone, the only Gold Cup entry here today, will roll off in the 8th. And then Jeff Kingsley in the 16th, Martin Harvey in 11th, and Neil Walker in the 83 will round out the starting grid here today.
With the exception of that opening lap, the only real action we saw was towards the end of the race when Jeff Kingsley had that 3rd place position for most of the race, and then Stefan Rudzinski out of nowhere got him with about 5 minutes left in the race.
Yeah, and that was a fantastic sort of end of that race. As we were watching the 8 car, he sort of looked and said, I think that gap is closing, and it was just closing a little bit, and Rudzinski was able to click off fast lap after fast lap. Even on old Yokohama tires, they held up and they stuck for the driver of the 8 car, and he picked up the most positions yesterday, and as a result of that, a program that Yokohama has with the mover of the race, Stefan Rudzinski, was able to pick who gets to throw the green flag today. So he chose a couple people from one of his sponsors, Rebellion Brewing. So Patricia Braun up in the flag stand today, and she will wave the green flag as the field bunches up in through turn 10, now into 11 as we watch them come onto the front straightaway. We will go green this time, around 45-minute timed race for the Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama, and we're green again in Toronto.
Zachary Robichaux to the inside, contact with his teammate Roman DeAngelis. That opens the door for the number 96, Remo Ruscetti. Ruscetti will file in third. So thus far, Robichaux takes the lead. Can't tell. And indeed, a pass by the 96 machine. Nice move around Roman DeAngelis.
A smart move, as both the front row drivers really took quite a wide line. It looked like Robichaux was more concerned about DeAngelis on the outside, and Ruscetti had a wide open inside lane and able to make a move, and now he has to defend as DeAngelis jumped to the inside turn number 3, and he wrestled second spot back away from the driver of the open road, racing number 96.
I think Roman DeAngelis, certainly we saw yesterday, has a quicker Porsche. Don't know if he needed to force the issue that early. Contact there at the entrance of turn number 3 between DeAngelis and Ruscetti, so that will relegate Ruscetti back to the third position. Now coming into the clutches of Michael DeMaio.
And DeMaio has some company as well in the 8 of Stefan Rudzinski, who's right on the back bumper of the Policaro Motorsport Sports Car Boutique, number 35 of Michael DeMaio. And you remember, it was the 8 and the 16 yesterday from the Policaro Motorsport tent. They were having a tough battle all race long, and now it's the 8 and the 35, a teammate to Jeff Kingsley. And it looks like Rudzinski's going to take a look on the inside in turn number 1. He's not quite close enough to make that move.
Pass further back in the field. I believe that is the 84 machine of Perry Bortolotti. Pass there for position. Yeah, Stefan Rudzinski not needing to force that issue. We have a long 43 minutes remaining before this is over. No need to press, but obviously he has a little bit of something for Michael DeMaio.
He really does. And just getting in those mirrors, getting in the driver in front of him, getting in their head, trying to play a little bit of mind games. As soon as you see those lights in the mirror, the driver in front starts to think about it and maybe off their line, may not hit their marks as often as they need to. But you can see DeAngelis able to open up a gap now on third place, Remo Ruscetti. So maybe it was a wise move to force that pass early in turn number 3. He didn't want to let the number 98 of Zachary Robichaux get too far ahead, and that's exactly what Robichaux has been able to do. He's opened up a gap of 1.2 seconds in the early going here. So now DeAngelis really has to be on it, and he has to close that gap back up if he wants any chance of winning.
We saw some very quick laps yesterday, and I would imagine by the time we get to lap 4, lap 5, we will see a good one as that gap starts to close again, that battle for fourth. But Zachary Robichaux, minute 14.5, but his teammate Roman DeAngelis, a lap of a minute 13.878, nearly a second quicker that time by.
That is huge for the youngster DeAngelis. And one thing we haven't talked about DeAngelis is he is a redhead. And he has a fire in him as he locks up the right front hard in turn number 3, almost hits the tire wall on corner exit. He was pushing that GT3 Cup car and trying to catch the leader, and that will do damage. As long as he locked up that Yokohama right front tire, that will flat spot that tire. So now, with no pit stops in a 45-minute timed race, we're only 4 minutes into this one. That'll be tough. He'll likely have a vibration on the front end.
And as you said, Dave, we have so much time left, and as he clipped off that great lap of nearly a second quicker than his teammate, and indeed he comes to pit lane. Disastrous for Roman DeAngelis. No need to push this early in the race, especially as quick of a car as he has. So now he will be relegated to the back of the field, lock him up at least 100, 200 yards going into turn number 3.
Yeah, that wasn't just a quick lockup that you can easily recover from, and you can see the crew going to work on the right side. They'll get that right front Yokohama tire changed. It. I wouldn't be surprised if it went completely flat. That's how long he had locked it up at the end of Lakeshore Boulevard here in downtown Toronto, the fastest part of this racetrack. And now Zachary Robichaux really has no company in behind him. A 4-second gap between him and Remo Ruscetti, who sits now in second. You have Michael DeMaio in the 35 in the Policaro Motorsport Sports Car Boutique entry, holding down fourth spot, but still under pressure from Stefan Rudzinski, who is hounding the driver every inch of the way. Rudzinski from Edmonton, Alberta, a driver coach at Area 27, a private racetrack built out in Alberta, or in BC, I should say, driving from downtown Porsche. So he has sponsors in the crowd here today. A podium finish yesterday, looking to do the same here again today.
Stefan Rudzinski moving to the left and the right, letting Michael DeMaio know he's there. And now now we see a pass to the outside. That's Jeff Kingsley getting around Perry Bortolotti. Nice move in a place we don't normally see passing, and that's in turns 10 and 11.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a dicey move. You can see some body work hanging from the 16 of Jeff Kingsley again here today. Yesterday, he raced nearly the entire distance with the front bumper cover torn up significantly on that sports car boutique Policaro Motorsport Porsche Center Oakville entry. The crew did a lot of work on that car to make it right here today, and it looks like Jeff Kingsley is fairly happy with it. He's now up inside the top 5, so he's having a decent run after starting well back in the field.
Well, if that front left of that Porsche had a personality for Jeff Kingsley, it'd be like, come on, really? Tearing me up again?
Again?
Back to Roman DeAngelis. You had mentioned he's a redhead as he had locked him up into turn number 3, a fiery young man and a great competitor, 17 years of age. He will be relegated to the back of the field, so obviously he's going to need some type of caution or something just to get him in touch with the field again.
He will indeed. And you see Michael DeMaio is pushing to try and keep the 8 of Stefan Rudzinski behind him as he's sailing the back end of his Porsche GT3 Cup entry around turns 9 and 10 onto the front stretch on the exit of turn number 11, keeping Rudzinski back, but definitely using up those Yokohamas in the meantime. And we need to say that the setup you had in your car yesterday may not be what you need here today. The temperature conditions, the sunshine, cloud cover, everything is so vastly different. Time of day, another big thing. Yesterday we were racing at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Today, a midday sun, very, very warm track surface. So these drivers sort of take a guess at what they think this track will need as far as the setup goes, and they're going with it. So it looks like DeMaio's struggling just a little bit. Kingsley definitely has something dialed in.
Plus, we have 5 other series racing here this race weekend, and we have had 3 races thus far in a practice session. So these Yokohama tires having to adjust, these drivers having to adjust with all that different rubber compound laid down, although the track has certainly gripped up over this race weekend. Another factor to add into the conditions here for these drivers today.
You see the distance back between your leader and second place, Remo Rischetti, in the open road racing number 96. Now, the top two cars look different. They both pit under the same tent. Actually, the Mark Motors Group handles the maintenance on the road in the open road racing. Number 96 of Remo Rischetti. So they're all under the tent if you go to the paddock area. So essentially de facto teammates. Zachary Robichaux and Remo Rischetti are now battling at the front, but Zachary Robichaux, once again, the class of the field, putting on a clinic here today. 6 laps in. We're just about 10 minutes into this time to race, a 6.6 second gap over second place.
Keeping our eye on that battle for third between Michael DeMaio and Stefan Rudzinski. DeMaio's day done early yesterday with that contact down there in turn 1. Certainly he excited to be back out here racing on the streets of Toronto. One of the marquee events in this Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. And certainly Michael wanting to get out here and run among all these great Toronto race fans. This event just brings a different type of energy than anything else you really see throughout the year.
It really does, because you get a lot of casual fans, automotive fans, not necessarily race fans. I mean, you don't have to drive out of your way. You can take public transit to get to the track here today, yesterday, and Friday as well. Friday was free for the fans to come in and just wander around through the paddock and watch the practice sessions and qualifying as well. So it is very much a different animal from some of the other stops that the Porsche GT3 Cup makes around Canada. So it's great to be involved with some of the fans' businesses here as well. So, and if you look at the Policaro Motorsport trailer, the tent in the paddock area, they have a large contingent of supporters standing outside waiting to talk to the drivers. I mean, both Kingsley and Michael DeMaio are from Kingsley from Ajax, just outside of Toronto, and Michael DeMaio is from here in Toronto, so they want to put on a good show for their hometown fans.
Neil Walker with issues. He takes his Porsche to pit lane.
Neil Walker, the only American in the field, driving from Phoenix, Pennsylvania, the Tolman Walker Racing, with help from Porsche Center North Toronto. He's been struggling a little bit off the pace yesterday, and once again here today. So down pit lane to see if he can get things rectified.
So for Zachary Robichaux, as he exits turn number 11, last time by the gap 7.4 seconds over Remo Rischetti. Rischetti just now exiting turn number 11. So from 7, we will see that gap increase to 7.7. So Ricchetti with a nice lap there. Both drivers in that minute 13. So a good lap for Raymond Ricchetti, trying to at least keep in touch with Zachary Robichaux.
And that's something that Ricchetti couldn't really do yesterday, was get into that 1 minute 13 second area. He was very happy in the 1 minute 14 range, but never quite broke that mark. And today, they have found an extra gear, and he is doing some great lap times as well. And looking a little bit deeper in the field here, Perry Bortolotti, one of the Masters driver, actually leading the Masters class. In the number 84 there, you see the mostly chrome Marks Motors entry. He's holding off the 14 of Michael Fanton. And again, Fanton from Toronto, involved in that incident in lap 1 yesterday, and unfortunately broke some tie rods, ball joints, and steering boxes on the front. Not a lot of cosmetic damage to that car, but I talked to the crew, and they said, no, we've got a lot of wrenching to do tonight, and they did that. And he's up in 7th spot now, but involved in a great battle there with Perry Bortolotti. Bortolotti is no stranger to the Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. He raced several years ago, took a significant amount of time off. He's not running the full series here in 2018, but he definitely knows how to muscle these cars around, especially the Toronto Indy racetrack. And here comes Fanton. He'll take a look to the outside.
So for Michael Fanton, that time by, the gap drops to 0.3 seconds. About 0.2 quicker than Perry Bortolotti. They worked their way through turn number 2, and now down that long backstretch, Thunder Alley, Lakeshore Boulevard, down to the very hard braking, hard right-hand turn 3 to the climb up turn 4 down Ontario Boulevard. And we'll see who outbrakes who. A little brake smoke from the number 14 of Michael Fanton as he loses about 2 car lengths, tried to, I think, get into the rearview mirror of Perry Bortolotti and then cost himself when he broke too late.
And I was going to say, it didn't take much of a tire smoke, a wheel lockup, to lose that ground. So you make one small mistake, it gets you off your line, and then now Fenton has to work a couple more laps to close that gap in order to be in a position to try and make a pass on Bortolotti.
We talked about this yesterday, and after that big incident in turn number 1, we have so many series here this race weekend. Here on the streets of Toronto, we see so many different... Oh, boy. Michael Fanton nearly hitting the wall there in turn number 10. Able to keep it off the wall, but potentially something wrong with that car. He swung it way wide. But back to that point, we see open-wheel cars. We see the NASCARs. We see all these various forms, and we know they're all really, really expensive. But one thing we know for sure, we know what a Porsche costs, and when we see incidents on this track, it makes you go, oh my God, you just cringe when you see any incident on the track.
Yeah, you do. And you know what, a tribute to these teams, they're ready to race these cars. I mean, they'll put them back together. They know they're race cars, and they don't shy away. They try not to make the intentional contact, as you would see in some of the other full-fender motorsports like the NASCAR Pinty Series that races on the streets of Toronto. That's a full contact sport, essentially stock cars on a street circuit. It's definitely fender rubbing the entire time, but the Porsche Series is a little bit more gentlemanly. They try and keep their fenders clean. It's difficult, though, on a street circuit when you have walls on both sides, and some of these turns are super tight. You're trying to clip the apex. Sometimes you may clip a wall, but you're right. To put these cars back together from scratch is definitely a financial investment.
Someone needed to tell that to Zachary Robichaux and Roman DeAngelis at the start of that race. They started bumping right out of the gate. So for Zachary Robichaux, that advantage over Raymond Ricchetti, now 9.3 seconds. Roman DeAngelis back on track after changing that front right tire. The gap at one point to his teammate and leader Zachary Robichaux was 44 seconds. He's now got it down to 36 seconds. But obviously, as we said a little bit earlier, he's going to need some help to get back in touch with this field.
And you remember that DeAngelis came into this race second in points, chasing Zachary Robichaux. Now, the gap between first and second in points is significant because Robichaux has been so successful this year, winning all but one of the races in 2018. But DeAngelis, he needs those good weekends. He needs to keep up in the points to maintain that second place, because now you have a driver like Raymond Ricchetti who's knocking on the door, running a solid second after having a respectable comeback yesterday, salvaging a lot of points yesterday after getting early involved in a problem. Now, Ricchetti sitting second. He'll have a great points day, so it's up to DeAngelis to sort of minimize the damage over the course of the day today.
15 minutes into this 45-minute event. Back to that battle for third place with Michael DeMaio and Stefan Rzadzinski. It has stabilized, although for a moment Rzadzinski dropped back out of touch with Michael DeMaio, able to kind of close that gap again. The gap now 0.7 seconds as they work their way down to turn number 3. Dave Bradley joining us. I'm Michael Young, and what a season this has been for Zachary Robichon. Are we seeing something unique, something special in what he's been able to accomplish thus far this year?
I think so. I mean, we have seen it in the past with Scott Hargrove, who raced last year in this series, who was nearly untouchable. Zachary Robichon did beat him on a couple of occasions, though, but definitely Zachary Robichon, every time he hits the track, he's either on pole, outside pole, or in victory lane. I mean, he has been nearly untouchable at the front of this field. And definitely, this is a special year for Zachary Robichon, who could potentially be turning some heads higher up in the IMSA ranks. So could we see him running in potentially a prototype series? He's already done a little dabbling there. He did it at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park last weekend. So will that turn into a full-time opportunity? Possibly so, but it never hurts your chances when you put in dominating performance as he's doing here today.
We talk about Zachary Robichon, his teammate Roman DeAngelis, running in the United States as well, winning a couple of races there. But this Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge here in Canada has really become a marquee for drivers to hone their skills. We've seen so many great drivers get launched out of this series.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last two champions of this series, you have Scott Hargrove, who's now running a factory, or nearly a factory Porsche in the World Challenge Series, I believe it is, or the WeatherTech. Is it WeatherTech? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, WeatherTech for the FAF Porsche entry there, and doing very, very well. And then you have Daniel Morad running a Mercedes in the upper ranks as well. He's running the Pirelli World Challenge Series. So there is two champions from this Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge who have gone on to bigger things, and all by honing their skills in a sports car. A lot of the drivers, they start their dreams in open wheel. They come out of go-karts, they move into Formula Fords, Formula 1600s, and that's their dream. I want to race Indianapolis. I want to race Formula One. But then they seem to hit roadblocks along the way, be it financially or just lack of opportunity in the upper levels. So then they move over to sports cars, and this is a great place to start in the sports car world. You really get a feel for how these cars handle, how they work, and a 45-minute timed race is definitely not a long time in the car, but it is long enough to work on your skills and to potentially turn some heads, as Zachary Robichon is doing here in 2018.
Just got around the machine of Martin Harvey to put him one lap down. That is the first car to be lapped that is currently racing here on the circuit. We have, of course, Neil Walker, who went to pit lane early in this race, and Dussault not able to make the call today after Perry found that contact in race number 1 too difficult to get that car back into shape, and here racing in race number 2. Mark Motors racing. Oh, we have a car around. That's the 14th of Michael Fanton, and that is a bad place to be turned around. Right there at turn number 5, trying to get that car righted, and does. He had that battle going on with Perry Bortolotti for a while, but giving up the ghost right now as he spins it in turn number 5, and that's an easy corner to get turned around. Very high-speed corner, very tight left-hander, and if you get up on that curving a little too much, the back end wants to step out.
And you can see the tire marks on the track just as, and there you can see them right there. They just loop around, and it looks like under power for Michael Fanton. The back end just sort of comes around, swap sides. Did not make contact with the concrete barrier, which is great news for the 14 driver, as he's able to right the ship and get back going. So he doesn't lose too much time. He loses at least one spot to Roman DeAngelis. He's now running in the 9th position.
So the running order, Zachary Robichon, this with 25 minutes remaining. In the lead, 12-second advantage over Remo Ricchetti. And it's Michael DeMaio, Stefan Rzadzinski, Jeff Kingsley, Perry Bortolotti, and Marco Cerrone. Roman DeAngelis, who's had that late break into turn number 3, had to come in for a front right tire change, finds himself overall in the 8th position. Michael Fanton runs 9th, and Martin Harvey in that 10th position, the first car 1 lap down.
12-second, almost 13-second gap now back between first and second. Robichon to Ricchetti. And we've been watching that battle for a third spot. The final step on the podium. Michael DeMaio currently has it, and it's now nearly a 2-second gap back to Stefan Rudzinski. So that's gone from a half second all the way to over 2 seconds, and it's now sort of solidified around that 2-second mark. So Stefan Rudzinski maybe backing off to try and make that late race run that he did yesterday. Remember, it was almost about 10 minutes to go in the 45-minute timed race where he really turned up the wick and started going. And he could potentially just be cooling off the brakes a little bit and saving his Yokohama tires, as here comes DeAngelis. And he'll pick up another spot, passing the Gold Cup entry of Marco Cironi in the 18. Couple teammates, and Cironi did not make it very difficult on DeAngelis, as DeAngelis now up to the 6th place.
What an opportunity Marco Cironi provided for Roman DeAngelis. One of those stories at the tender age of 11 years old, to throw him in a Porsche and begin his racing career in this GT3 Cup Challenge. It's a story, it almost fairy tale story. It's just amazing to think of an 11-year-old driving a Porsche.
And you know what? He really has taken the opportunity and he's run with it. You talked about him running both in the Canadian and U.S. Series for the Porsche GT3 Cup. And he's up in the points in both of them. He's not leading in the U.S. Series and he's not leading in Canada, but he's in the top 2 in both of them. He has wins in the United States. He has wins here in Canada as well. He's a Gold Cup champion from a year ago, now the first year in the Platinum Cup car. And he's just doing very, very well each time he's out in one of these machines. So he was given the opportunity and he has not squandered it. And the best thing about Roman DeAngelis is he does not tear up equipment. He's not a driver that's hard on his car. Doesn't come back with a fender hanging off or a headlight bezel broken or the bumper torn off. That car is in one piece nearly every single weekend. Yesterday he had some damage to the right side door, but it was another car that was spinning beside him that made contact with him, so completely not his fault. But yet he did a great job keeping the car off the wall in turn number 1 in that first lap melee. So DeAngelis is a smart driver, but he's a fast driver, and he is making waves both here in Canada and in the United States.
Yeah, winning down in Watkins Glen and winning at Barber Motorsports Park. Some great races driven by Roman DeAngelis. And again, the tire issue that he had as he locked him up into turn number 3, the reason why he has fallen back to that 7th position, now 40 seconds behind his teammate and leader Zachary Robichon. And right now I don't think Roman pushing too terribly hard. He's in the high 113s, low 114s, but Zachary Robichon was really nothing to prove. He's got a 14-second lead, and he clicking off laps in that minute 13, the low minute 13s, lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, he's only one of 2 drivers able to do that. The other one is his teammate Roman DeAngelis, who could potentially catch Perry Bortolotti here in a few minutes' time. But you're right, Zachary Robichon, that's almost cruise control for him. His best lap is almost into the 1 minute 12-second range. A minute 13 flat is his best lap time here this afternoon. His last lap time, 1 minute 13.1. So it gives you an idea, too, how well those Yokohama tires are holding up for the number 98 Mark Motors entry of Zachary Robichon, and just how gentle he's being. If you watch him on track and you watch some of the other drivers who are struggling a little bit with setup, the number 98 does not set a tire wrong. It looks like he's almost just cruising here today, just able to hit his marks, roll through the turns, get back on the gas, and there he goes. He's clicking off the fastest laps of the race each and every time.
That pole lap time, as we see the 35, wow, nearly get around Michael DeMaio as he rolls through turns number 3 right there. About had the back end step out now through 4 and turn 5, but back to Zachary Robichon, jaw-dropping pole-setting lap on Friday, a minute 11.6.
I know.
Unbelievable. Actually, that was Saturday that happened, yesterday morning.
It was incredible to see that lap. We watched practice. I mean, they were practicing in the 1:14 range. And then all of a sudden in qualifying, here they come. And it was Zachary Robichaux, 1:11, which was nearly unbelievable. I had to look twice when I saw that one pop up on the screen. It was sort of an are you kidding me moment. Because everybody else in the field, including his teammate, Roman DeAngelis, who has now caught Perry Bortolotti, will be looking to make a move on the exit to turn 11 here as they work their way onto the front straightaway. But Roman DeAngelis qualified on the outside of the front row, and he was half a second off that time of Zachary Robichaux. And he's like, what more can I do?
Yeah, it was something. And boy, Perry Bortolotti now giving way to his teammate Roman DeAngelis, and then drove right in front of him at the exit of turn number 2. So DeAngelis hits the brakes, allows Bortolotti, and you saw a little flicker of the headlights there saying, hey, teammate, how about a little help here?
Yeah, exactly. Perry Bortolotti comfortably in front in the Masters class, so the drivers of advanced age in similar equipment. So he is in a Platinum Cup car. Same as Roman DeAngelis, who chases him here today, but they are teammates, and I don't think Bortolotti thought that the 78 was that close. But you saw a little panicked braking in turn number 2, and that really hurt Roman DeAngelis on his run down the back straightaway. So if he had visions of making a pass going into turn number 3, that was completely scuttled by Bortolotti closing the door in turn number 2.
Whatever was going through Roman DeAngelis' mind as he came down the front straightaway last time trying to get around his teammate Perry Bortolotti, I think he'll be a tad bit more aggressive this time as he's all over that rear bumper of his teammate. They swing out of turn number 11, the gap about a car length. And we'll see Roman DeAngelis swing to the outside, and now Perry gives him room to the inside. Roman DeAngelis will make the move through turn number 1 and get around his teammate. That was what I think Roman was expecting last time around.
Exactly, and you saw when he did hang out, Bortolotti took a defensive line down the front straightaway and then tucked to take the regular racing line, but you saw the little light flicker from the 78 of DeAngelis going, remember, I'm back here and I'm coming.
It's those small reminders, even for your teammates, that, hey, don't forget, I'm back here.
Exactly. It's the silent horn that you'll see in your mirror when you take a quick look.
And it is a loud horn. Even when you see those lights are flickering, you know that somebody's trying to get your attention. Robichaux, your leader, Ricchetti second. Michael DeMaio, those battles have all kind of settled out for 1, 2, and 3. The lead now for Zachary Robichaux with 17 minutes to go is 18 seconds. And then Michael DeMaio, 24 seconds back. Stefan Rosinski trying to keep touch and maybe make a late race charge. Now a second and 4/10, the difference between third and fourth, and that's the final step on the podium.
I was going to say, too, that Michael DeMaio and Stefan Rosinski have broken into the 1:13 range as far as their best lap time goes, so both are starting to push a little bit harder. Remember, Michael DeMaio had that slide coming off of turn number 5, I believe it was, the backhand stepping out on the 35 and allowing Rudzinski to close out turn number 3, I should say. Rudzinski closed the gap just a little bit, and then DeMaio definitely responded, laying down a cracker of a lap in the 1:13 area. So that's about as quick as he's gone all weekend, so definitely DeMaio getting more comfortable behind the wheel of that 35. Remember, he didn't have many laps yesterday, so all of the practice time that you develop over 2 races in a race weekend, you cut that in half, and it's a steep learning curve for a young driver in an unfamiliar car relative to a lot of these drivers who are out there now.
Well, if Michael DeMaio could have a conversation with Jeff Kingsley, he would remind him that Stefan Rosinski waits late in this race, or at least he did yesterday, and made a late race charge and got around Kingsley for third. Now Michael DeMaio, the driver that Stefan Rosinski is going to try to get around. The gap was 1.4 last time. It's now 1.6, but Dave, we saw that yesterday. Rosinski just was kind of hanging there, and as you said, with about 10 to 12 minutes to go, all of a sudden he's closing that gap, and he closed it in a hurry.
And he did, and then we said there's the big difference between catching and passing, so we thought, okay, maybe he can get to the bumper, but there'd be no chance that he would get around the 16 of Kingsley. Then there was some issue because Kingsley did drop back in the pack just a little bit on the last lap, but the 8 went through, and he took the final podium spot in race number 1 on the weekend. here in that downtown Porsche-backed entry. Stefan Rudzinski, driver coach at Area 27, as I mentioned earlier, a private track in British Columbia, and has been searching for a permanent home in any race series. I mean, he's dabbled in NASCAR, he's dabbled in Indy Lights, he's run a variety of different series as one-offs or two-offs. He never really got the opportunity to do a full season, and here he is in the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama, and he's definitely doing a wonderful job here in 2018.
I believe he even did some races in the Pro Mazda Series, USF 2000 Series. We remember him in open wheel racing the first time when the open wheel cars ran in Edmonton for the Grand Prix over there, and Stefan made an appearance in the Indy Lights Series.
Again, another one of those drivers who had his sights set on open wheel and then, didn't get the opportunities that he was hoping to get a full-time ride, and now takes a look at sports car racing. And, Ron Fellows is obviously a legend in sports car racing in Canada and around the world, and he's one of those drivers. If you look at Ron's stature, he's a relatively tall fella. For him to fit in an open-wheel car is a bit of a stretch at this point, the way they make the open-wheel cars. And so it was years ago that somebody took him aside and said, you know what, I'm going to be honest with you, you're not going to make it an open wheel. Why don't you try something with a roof on it? And that was his introduction to sports car racing, and that's how he got into it. But he, too, was one of those drivers who sort of started, I want to go Formula One, I want to go Indianapolis, I want to make that run, I want to be a big star of an open wheel car. And here he is, a big star in sports car racing. So undoubtedly, he's taking these younger drivers aside and said, you know what? Let's look in this direction, because you can carve out a very, very good career for yourself in sports car racing.
And that is one of the the toughest pill to swallow, because you have set this goal. You've dreamt about this your entire life, and then when that realization really sets in, and when you accept that it's not going to happen, your career's not over. You can become a star, as you just said, in another form of racing. Sports cars are a great example. Make a good living, have a great career, and probably not have all the headaches that you would have if you were in the top tier of open-wheel racing or any other form of motorsport.
Exactly. A series like the Porsche GT3 Cup, there's not as much pressure on the drivers to perform. There's the sort of allowance to make a mistake. The owners aren't going to kick you. You're not going to lose your ride tomorrow if you have a fender flapping, as Jeff Kingsley does here today. He's still in the learning stage. Kingsley inside the top 5 now in that Paulie Carroll Motorsport Porsche Center Oakville entry, and having a reasonable run as he did again yesterday in front of hometown fans from Ajax, Ontario, just down the road. A little bit of a fender flap, but again, he's learning every time out. He's getting faster, and that's the beauty of this series. Again, there's pressure to perform. Don't get me wrong. They want you to win every time you get in that car, but if you make a mistake, it's okay, as long as you learn from it the next time out.
12 minutes remaining in race number 2 of the Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. The battles we will start watching, again, that battle for third with Michael Tamayo and Stefan Rudzinski. And there we have eyes on Roman DeAngelis, and he is starting to close on Jeff Kingsley for that 5th position. So pretty stellar drive, a stout drive, if you will, for Roman DeAngelis, trying to get back into the top 5 after falling to the back of the field.
Yeah, he started on the outside of the front row in the Mark Motors number 78, and then dropped all the way back to, I believe, 10th spot, and has worked his way forward from there. He's now sitting just outside the top 5 and is one of the fastest cars on the track at this time. If you look at last lap times between the 78 and the 16, Roman DeAngelis nearly, actually over a full second quicker than the 16 of Jeff Kingsley. So a few more laps like that, and you'll duck into that 5-second margin very, very quickly.
As Kingsley crosses the start-finish line, so too does Roman DeAngelis. That gap down to 4 seconds now. And I know these drivers have to put moments out of their mind where they make mistakes. But I bet it was a couple of laps that Roman DeAngelis thought, what I could have done had I not made that huge error in the opening laps here at the race and locking up that right front.
Especially now that he's clicking off positions and passing cars and closing gaps. He knows how good of a race car he has underneath him. And Yeah, it probably took 5 laps or so for him to shake it off. There was likely smoke coming out of the cockpit as he's sitting on pit road, just coming out from underneath the helmet as he's frustrated with himself, angry with himself, because DeAngelis is that kind of driver. He wants to be perfect every time he's on the track, and sometimes you do make a mistake, but the good drivers are able to rebound from those mistakes, and that's exactly what the driver of the 78 is doing here today.
Indeed, it's one of those situations. Doesn't matter what form of motorsport you watch, they have those moments, and we as commentators, it's easy to say, what are you thinking? It's the opening laps, but when you're inside, sometimes that visor gets down, that red mist starts to happen, and you push way beyond what you need to be pushing, especially early in a race. So Roman DeAngelis trying to close in on Jeff Kingsley. The gap was 5 seconds, now down to 3.4 seconds. That will be for 5th position. Stefan Rosinski, 3.5 seconds behind Michael DeMaio. So what we thought could potentially be a late race charge, not really shaping up with just 9.5 minutes remaining in race number 2. I think the best battle we will see out on the racetrack is the battle between Roman DeAngelis and Jeff Kingsley. Kingsley has 5th. DeAngelis wants it.
And the difference between Remo Ricchetti and Michael DeMaio for 2nd and 3rd, that gap has solidified there. As we see one driver in trouble in turn number 3. I believe that was Perry Bortolani who got a little, it was Marco Cerrone, and the number 18 got in a little bit deep and hung on to it. Kingsley, though, still that fender flapping in the 16, still holding on to 5th spot, trying to hold off a hard-charging Roman DeAngelis. Under 10 minutes left now, just under 9 minutes, believe it or not, as Kingsley goes by here on the front straightaway, and there you see the 78. Mark Motors' entry of Roman DeAngelis is on the same straightaway, and that means a lot mentally, too, to a driver who's chasing. If you can see the car ahead of you that you're trying to get to, that means another couple tenths of a second every lap, because you know you're there. You know, if I can just get a little bit deeper every corner, I'll be right on his back bumper in no time.
And you know Jeff Kingsley's going to disregard any lights that he potentially will see coming from the Porsche of Roman DeAngelis. Kingsley's drove a great race, and he's not going to give that 5th position up easily.
No, and again, we mentioned Kingsley is racing in front of a hometown crowd. The local fans in the stands, they'll be cheering him on as well. As we take a look at our Masters class leader, Perry Bortolani. He's had a great run. He sits 7th overall right now. And then a good battle a little bit deeper in the field. That's your leader going around the lap car, the 08 of Martin Harvey from Berthierville, Quebec. The McCafe-sponsored entry, so Zachary Robichon putting Harvey yet another lap down as he continues to post some of the fastest laps of the race. Again, the only driver to be consistently in the 1:13 area all race long.
So that gap now getting closer, down to 2.2 seconds. Jeff Kingsley in 5th. Roman DeAngelis is in 6th. We'll keep our eyes on that battle as that pair drive down Lakeshore Boulevard, and there are the lights for Jeff Kingsley. Roman DeAngelis not even really that close to Jeff Kingsley, but just starting to try to grab that attention a little bit with 7 minutes remaining.
You know what? At this point, what does it hurt to try? You know, if I can get a flash of a light in his mirror and it takes him off his game, maybe he overbrakes into turn number 3 or just sort of get in his head. That's exactly what Roman DeAngelis is doing to try and break into the top 5.
And those aren't even slow lights.
No,
those are quick lights. Hey, he's hitting that horn. He's hitting it quick.
So DeAngelis is getting a little anxious and wanting to get up there and try and take away that position. Jeff Kingsley, though, is doing a good job at, not letting it affect him too much. You don't see that car sliding through the corners too much. He's still able to maintain control. Not quite as quick as DeAngelis is right now, but look at him swerving back and forth in the straightaway as DeAngelis tries to get in ahead of the rookie driver, Jeff Kingsley.
The gap last time was 2.2 seconds. It's now down to 1. 6 minutes remaining. Robichon, your leader. Ricchetti 2nd. DeMaio runs 3rd. That will be the podium for the Platinum class. Rosinski running 4th. Then that battle we're watching for 5th between Jeff Kingsley and Roman DeAngelis. He's been flicking those. They got to wear out the bulbs in those Porsche headlights.
Well, you think he's pushed that car probably harder than anybody here today. The number 78, after scuffing the right front tire, over braking in turn number 3, just a hard lockup for about 100 meters, and eventually cutting that tire down, a quick tire change, and then working his way back up through this field. And now Roman DeAngelis on the cusp of getting back into the top 5.
The final 2 corners of this 11-turn circuit, and about a 6-car length disadvantage for Roman DeAngelis. But Roman trying to close on Jeff Kingsley, gets those lights a flashing again. That time by, he's got it down to 0.7 of a second.
Yeah, he's not quite close enough to get into the slipstream of the car in front of him, but Roman DeAngelis might be able to do it now as they turn through number 2 and onto Lakeshore Boulevard. So again with the light flash, and again a little bit too far back to really mount a challenge without making a Hail Mary move to the inside, but he'll tuck up now in turn number 3. Gained a lot of ground under braking in turn 3, did Roman DeAngelis.
What he did do that time that he didn't do at the start of this race, he broke later but didn't lock up the brakes, and that was the big difference. He got in so hard, he had to really get into the brakes when he was trying to pass his teammate Zachary Robichaux. Now a little wiser, as Roman DeAngelis says. Those 2 cars battling for 5th, work turn number 8.
You got to wonder, too, with all the weaving on the straightaway that he's doing to try and grab the attention of the driver in front of him, what's that doing for his overall lap time as far as scrubbing off speed? So could he potentially have caught him a little bit earlier? We're under 4 minutes to go in this race, as DeAngelis is now on the back bumper, and now potentially, I was going to think he might take a look on the inside into turn number 1. He doesn't. He'll back off and tuck in behind the number 16 of Jeff Kingsley.
If you're in Kingsley's head right now, you think Kingsley's going, yeah, I see you back there. You're not going to get around me, at least not that easily. Jeff's done a really good job.
He has done a really good job, and you know what DeAngelis may have done is, rather than rattle the driver of the 16, is give him a heads up and get him prepared for this oncoming challenge. He knows the 78 is quicker. He's been quicker all weekend, but now Kingsley is going to start driving a little bit more defensively and going to make it difficult for the 78 to get around. Whereas if the 78 of DeAngelis had snuck up on him over the course of a race and maybe surprised him, we could be seeing a different story. But you saw in turn number 3 that time, Kingsley is about a half car length to the defensive into turn number 3. He'll likely do the same thing here in turn number 1 as they work through 9.
And if Roman DeAngelis wants to get around and grab that 5th position, he's going to have to do it passing Kingsley on the outside. That is, unless Kingsley makes some kind of mistake, and the biggest potential for that is this run down Lakeshore Boulevard to turn number 3.
Yeah, and here you see DeAngelis taking a look. No swerving this time. He'll tuck up close, and there you see Kingsley is just about a half car length to the defensive. He's not driving a blocking line, but he knows that the 78 is there, and he said, I'm just going to steal a little bit of your spot here on the racetrack. And it worked. He's able to keep the 78 at bay. We're just under 2 minutes left in this 45-minute time to race. Still Zachary Robichaux well out in front. He has this race very much in command over Raymond Rachetti in the number 96. The 35 of Michael DeMaio is holding down a solid 3rd place as he works around the number 14 of Michael Fenton, who's a lap down. But this is definitely the race that we're watching on the track, is the 16 of Jeff Kingsley and the 78 of Roman DeAngelis in a battle for the final top 5 position.
Kingsley with a 4th place finish yesterday was passed late in the race by Stefan Rosinski. Gave up that position, but working hard to keep P5. I believe we'll see the white flag this time by. Keep our eyes on the flag stand. We'll find the leaders as they come through. And there indeed is the white flag. Final lap, so Roman DeAngelis is going to have to get on his giddy-up if he wants to get around Jeff Kingsley. He's got 1 lap left to get things done.
It was 0.7 of a second, the difference the last time they crossed the stripe. DeAngelis is definitely in the shadow of the 16 now. He is right there through pretty much the entire lap. They'll work through Turn number 2 and on to the Lakeshore Boulevard. Or no, sorry, that's deeper in the, down through turn number 5 and into 6 now. Or turn 8, I should say. I'm a little bit lost on the track.
That's
there.
all right.
I'll get caught up eventually.
There you go. We're finishing up these final corners, and this is where Roman DeAngelis really had a nice run on Jeff Kingsley last time by. White flag out. He's got 11 turns. Oh, contact!
Kingsley caught the wall. Smoke from the back end of the Policaro Motorsport number 16. There was the pressure we talked about. Heavy smoke from the back end of the Porsche Center Oakfield number 16. Now can Kingsley finish the race as DeAngelis has managed to work his way up into 5th?
Well, Perry Bortolotti a long way back, but boy, that right might go down. Yep, there it comes, Zachary Robichaux.
Double checkers in the air. Zachary Robichaux will win his 7th of 8 races here in 2018. Continues his dominating season in the Mark Motors entry. We're still waiting for second place. This is the gap that Zachary Robichaux was able to build up over the course of this race. Still waiting for second place. Remo Ricchetti to work his way out of turn number 11. In lap traffic is Remo Ricchetti, and finally onto the front straightaway, so gives second place to the 96 of Ricchetti. Third place crossing the stripe, Michael DeMaio.
Here's the replay, and boy, Jeff Kingsley let that car drift all the way out, trying to carry all that speed through turn number 11, makes contact, and here comes Roman DeAngelis as Rosicki comes home 4th, DeAngelis 5th. Oh, what could have been for Jeff Kingsley. A great drive, just one turn too late on the final lap, makes contact. DeAngelis 5th, Kingsley 6th.
Did everything he needed to do, and he needed to maintain that speed out of turn number 11. He knew the 78 was going to try a pass into turn number 1 and unfortunately drifted out just a little bit. Should run through the winners of the other classes here today. The number 84, Perry Bortolotti, comfortably out in front all race long in the Masters class, and the only Gold Cup car in action today, the 18 of Marco Cerrone, will take top spot there.
Well, Dave Bradley, what a race that was, and another cruise control type of afternoon for Zachary Robichaux, your winner. The remainder of that podium, Remo Ricchetti and Michael DeMaio round out the Platinum class. And then for the Masters, Perry Bortolotti, your winner. Martin Harvey second, Neil Walker third, brought that car down to pit lane. Well, we will do our victory podium celebration. Always a pleasure, been a lot of fun. And we will see you again next year for this Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. It's been a lot of fun. Have a great remainder of your season.
Thanks very much, and you too. It's always a pleasure working with you and calling these Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge races by Yokohama here at Toronto. And look forward to seeing you again next year.
All right, race fans, we'll do our victory podium celebration and then begin our pre-race festivities. It's race day, the Honda Indy Toronto.